We just got the most recent consumer spending data from the Federal Reserve, and it's not looking good, but I see some news outlets trying to turn this into a positive. Because the thing is that credit card spending has been essentially flat for the last few months of 2025. And they're saying that the reason for it is that consumers are not confident in the economy, which could definitely be one of the reasons. But I think there's a lot more to it than that. So I want to dive into what's going on with consumer spending habits right now and see what we can make of it. As of August of 2025, total U.S. consumer debt climbed to a little over 5.06 trillion, which is a new all-time high, which is all different types of debt that people hold, not just credit card debt. We're talking mortgage debt, personal loans, auto loans, student loans, credit card debt, buy now, pay later. About 1.31 trillion of that 5 trillion is credit card debt, and 3.76 trillion of it is non-revolving credit, things like the auto loans, student loans, and personal loans. And the revolving credit portion of it actually fell 5.45% in the most recent month, which is a rare dip that might reflect households could be hitting their limits or paying down balances after heavy summer spending. My guess is it's on the first one. People are hitting their limits. They actually cannot spend more on the credit cards because there's probably nothing left to spend in many cases. Like, you can only go so far before you max out a credit card. And say you already have, 5 credit cards and 3 of them are close to being maxed out, you're probably going to be very, very hesitant to put any balance on the other 2 because you might be saving that for an emergency. This is my last resort credit card that I have to use, like break glass in case of an emergency type of deal. Make no mistake, even with this decline in credit card spending, credit card debt still remains at near record level highs right now, which suggests that consumers have been leaning heavily on credit cards to cover their everyday expenses. And we know this is happening from previous reports, as well as the rampant use of buy now, pay later to buy things even like groceries now. And the other thing you have to look at with this report is that non-revolving credit still continues to grow. Auto and student loans rose 2% in August, which is continuing their climb upwards, and borrowers are still financing major purchases despite the higher interest rates, showing that credit demand outside of credit cards still remains strong, which in my opinion means I need to buy the new car because my old one stopped working. So I need to buy that. It's not optional. So here I am. Regardless of what the interest rates are, this is something I have to do so I can pick up my kids from school and go to work. It's just so funny that the way that some of these economists paint the economy with some of this economic data, like the interpretations are so different, and obviously they want you to believe things are going well. Just like with the retail spending going up, right? It's like, well, the retail spending is going up because it has to. People have to spend more today than they did a year ago. So naturally, the retail spending is in line with inflation. People are not voluntarily spending more. They're spending more because of inflation. And the amount of money that people are spending is a little bit more than what the inflation numbers are showing us officially. So to me, that's basic common sense, but to economists, it means that the economy is booming. But another thing that this slowdown in borrowing could be is it also could be tighter lending standards, or it could be growing concerns about job security and the higher interest rates that people have to pay on this debt. I think it's a combination of all of it. I think people are worried about their jobs. We know that they are because most people in a recent survey said that they are worried about losing their job and finding work if they are put in that position. And it's not going to be as easy to borrow when you already have a high debt to income ratio. And the higher interest rates should be a deterrent for people to borrow money that they don't really need. So, of course, you're going to see people continue to borrow money to buy cars because that's something that people need. It's not optional, right? If you live in an area that's car dependent, like here, you can see all the cars parked on the street and in driveways. You need to have one. If you don't have one, it's going to make your life miserable trying to get to and from work, relying on public transportation. I like to look at the big picture with everything, which is that people are more stretched out with debt than they ever have been before, with consumer debt levels at all-time highs. And credit card interest rates are still sitting at around 22% for most cards, and people are paying record amounts of interest on these cards, so it's kind of a deterrent to continue spending on them unless it's absolutely necessary. But here's the thing. A sustained slowdown in credit card growth could also point to weaker spending ahead, which matters for the broader US economy, considering that 70% of US GDP is derived solely from spending. So if people are seriously tapped out and the spending slows down significantly, well, no wonder we're going to see a dip in GDP because it all relies on that. We also know that consumer sentiment has been way down recently, basically at the levels that we saw during the last big recession in 2008. So for people, it's like, give me a reason I should spend more right now. You know, I can't. I'm barely hanging on as it is with the expenses I have. And of course, I'm spending 4% more at the store this year because I have to. That's not because I want to. But I'll tell you one